Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to look at the top news industry stories of the week, according to Benzinga. On the line with us is Dan Kimmis of Good CBD Products.
I dig it, Chronic. I love the top stories.
The Cannabis Countdown, top 10 marijuana industry news stories of the week. Number 10, lawmakers increase pressure on the Trump administration to update antiquated federal cannabis policy. So there's some DC lawmakers that are pushing the Trump administration for greater cannabis research freedoms. They say that they are in a catch-22. They can't conduct business research until they show that there's cannabis has a potential medical use, but they can't show cannabis has a medical use until they can conduct research. A lot of money with that. Grants, for example, government grants and write-offs and all of that. So yeah, probably a lot more political than meets the eye. Number 9 is foreign assets could be the next on the block of cash-hungry cannabis companies. So with fears of a cash crunch looming over the industry, some of the same producers who spent tens of millions to build an international presence have started dialing back, putting projects on hold or divesting of their foreign operations altogether. In October, Canopy Growth dumped its 15% stake in Australian cannabis Can Group, and more recently, Aurora Cannabis announced it would be suspending construction of Aurora Nordic. So yeah, there's a lot. I found that very interesting up in Canada recently at the Lift Expo. A lot of even publicly traded companies looking to raise capital. So definitely already a capital crunch.
Well, and not screwing around kind of capital either. 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure real capital.
Yeah, there's still a lot of people wanting to get investors for, production to grow. So I'm getting a lot of inquiries from, Africa to Europe to, North America, Latin America, everywhere. I just don't really see a lot of investors going into agriculture as that commodity kind of dips. So unless there's somebody who can manufacture or distribute or do something unique, I'm not sure a lot of these guys are going to survive this year. And I think, with the previous podcast this last year, 2019, I was saying that capital constraint was going to cause a collapse, capitulation, in 18 months or 2 years. But I think we're going to see it this year.
Last night, there's an internet rumor running around, is Madmans bankrupt, right? And it's running around like fire, right? And whether they are or they aren't, the whole thing of, wait a minute, last year in the podcast, we were talking about you guys getting all this in. It's already out. They're not alone. It's an industry that needs a big pile of bread.
Right. I said Madmans would go bankrupt if there was a 1% drop in commercial real estate. And I don't even know if it's going to take that for that company to collapse, because they never had a model where they were self-sufficient on their own revenues. Scaled too big, too fast. And I heard the same rumor, where some of the initial founders are going to have their shares cut in half. So they're going to get 50 cents.
They should. It's fiscal malfeasance there, brother.
Well, they're going to have to give those shares to the new people. It's almost kind of like a Ponzi scheme, is take it from the old people, give it to the new people, and hope that they can change their model. Just like High Times, they're going to try and, do something different in hopes of generating some revenue, but I don't think it's going to help. They needed to implement something from the get-go.
They're going brick and mortar, but I digress. Pretty funny. Here we go.
So Ontario cannabis stores sell out of edibles within hours. That's number 8 on the list. Cannabis 2.0 up in Canada with the option of derivatives, including concentrates and edibles. It's finally going to be a real year of data where they can have all kinds of products. So I expect a weeding out in the Canadian industry, as well as people can't either get supplies, inventory to the market, or can't do it well enough. But it looks like Ontario's only legal online outlet for adult use cannabis sold out of the Cannabis 2.0 edibles within hours of initial availability on Thursday, demonstrating exceptionally strong demand in Canada's largest market.
Yeah, you want me to go legal, but then you put so many hurdles in the road that the supply chain can't actually keep me supplied. It's such a struggle back and forth, right?
I mean, it's impossible to be given a green light to start manufacturing and expect to have enough inventory to, suffice that demand. And it's very difficult. We've seen sellouts in every single market, so nothing new there. Number 7 is Nevada marijuana tax revenues hit new highs in October. So the State Department of Taxation figures they reported on Monday by the Las Vegas Sun the increase of more than $1 million in rec and medical cannabis tax revenues from September, and a jump of close to $1.6 million from October of the previous year. Nevada sold over 9 million in pre-rolls alone in October, according to BDS Analytics. So looks like they're doing well. Just like some of these other places in Canada, like Ontario, there's a fixed number of stores in Nevada, so it's almost kind of like a monopoly. So they tend to have the highest prices of any other market we've seen, other than new emerging states. Of course, that always starts high and ends up down, but Nevada has stayed high because of the limited number of stores.
Planet 13 was a good example. We were down there in November, and my God, there was a 45-minute line to buy your cannabis. It was very high priced. The store was packed, and I'll bet most of the people were tourists, in that if you walked out of the store and went a block, you could go to a place where there were $60 halves. Okay. But nobody was there. Everybody was in Planet 13 buying expensive tourist cannabis.
Yeah, side note, looking at the lines in Illinois kind of reminds me of lines on 420 with really good deals. So Illinois sold out, same thing we've seen before, but I digress. Number 6 is that concentrates, topicals, and drinks are coming to the Ontario market. So again, 2.0, that's a big deal up in Canada, finally be able to provide all kinds of different products and SKUs. And so we'll finally be able to get a good look, with data to see kind of when and where and how all of those products are being sold.
Hey, so I got it on the down low yesterday that they're actually going to delay drinks. They're gonna slow drinks down for a minute, just because there's still more questions. But yeah. So that whole thing of, ooh, it's a new launch, and there'll be another new launch, and there'll be 2.5 coming soon.
And I think it's there's a province that is not allowing vape sales either. So each region has its own laws, I guess. So we'll see who is able to sell what. That's going to be a tough market. Number 5, global cannabis sales experience a stunning growth despite market pains and limited access to markets. U.S. markets accounted for 81% of the 15 billion last year. According to ArcView and BDS Analytics, global sales for the plant increased by 48% to a USD of 15 billion, on track to reach 43 billion by 2023. Number 4 on the list is that Florida won't legalize marijuana in 2020. So voting on recreational cannabis isn't going to happen this year. The momentum, for all it's worth, they announced this week they won't be able to collect. There's 766,000 signatures necessary to place it on the legislative amendment for the 2020 ballot. I think that's probably a good thing. Save some people some money. They're going to probably try and grow outdoors and realize that the humidity and everything else is incredibly difficult for cannabis down there. They're going to find a lot of mold, and even in greenhouses, unless they're in an indoor facility, which is going to be fairly expensive. I think there's a lot to lose in Florida. I don't think you're going to see a lot of cultivation of a flower like cannabis down there.
That's funny. I was talking to some people who, their theory is that the crew that's muling in the border cannabis has managed to slow things down a little bit, because there's so much money to be made muling in border cannabis. So I don't know. I got to get that way. One of these days I want to be standing in Florida and looking at some of their weed.
Yeah, I was in Miami last year and saw, just the CBD in 7-Elevens and stuff like that. Not where you want to go, but it'll be interesting to see when that market opens up and kind of what that does. There's a lot of tourism and the baby boomers, so a huge market. Be interesting. At 3 on the list, the CDC confirms black market not vaping caused an outbreak. So a new report from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, they put on final nail to the coffin the idea that lung injuries occurred last summer were caused by vaping. It was actually caused by the black market. Vitamin E acetate, when heated up, kind of caused issues with the lungs. Big story.
Yeah, you know, I got some crew that's looking at the science around certain oils and how they age. And then, you know, their theory is not so fast yet because some of that vitamin E might be naturally occurring over time in your cannabis oil as it degrades. And then if that's the case, boy, that's a can of worms. You know, so it's, again, that crisis. What was interesting about the vape crisis is it opened everybody's eyes up to the whole thing of how lucky this industry's been so far with nothing like that.
Yeah, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of issues with that. People are going to want to be very careful about what they put into products. Number 2 on the list is that Canopy Growth and some others are hopeful to take over New Brunswick cannabis sales. So there's an opportunity to exclusively operate New Brunswick's recreational cannabis retail, wholesale, and e-commerce platforms. It's drawn interest from a wide range of companies, including Canada's largest food retailer and biggest marijuana producer in the country. The 8 proposals include Ontario's retail giant's Canopy Growth. Yeah, exclusivity, as we've seen in Nevada, is an obvious benefit. And so that's, again, why kind of Nevada has the highest prices of any regulated market in the U.S. So if Canopy can have exclusivity from seed to sale or any one part of that, that's a benefit, no doubt.
Yeah, a license to print money. Again, if you can figure out how to be in front of that line to actually get that license, that's how you win in cannabis.
Yeah, keep your competitors out. That's one way of doing it. And the number 1 story of the week is the worst over or a dead cat bounce. So what to make of almost 20% rally in cannabis stocks. So this week's bounce in pot stocks, the first in at least 2 months, could be the start of a renewed bullish run. Some portfolio managers believe as investors react favorably to more regulated clarity on retail stores in Ontario and better than expected earnings from some of the major licensed producers such as Organigram. So a dead cat bounce, first of all, is when you have a bounce in the market. So when there's an unexpected correction, that's an analogy to even a dead cat can bounce. So what we've seen from our AI-based stock is that there's been some double tops, and when that happens, you'll have a breakout going one way or the other. And so I think that's what we've seen is just a breakout. I think that'll probably correct and go sideways as we've seen between support and resistance levels on our own index. Essentially, I would agree that there is a dead cat bounce and that it's not going to be around or it's not going to stick around long term.
It's funny, out on the ground, hanging out with the retail investor, not the institutional, but the retail investor is very, very excited about the market and actually seems to be looking at the bloodbath as an opportunity. I'm not sure I agree, okay, but the retail level investor, you know, they're a long way from having hung up their hookah there, brother.
The bloodbath looks like it could be near the bottom. I don't think it is, though. I think the bounce that we saw is a reallocation of portfolios and some optimism. But you also have to take a look at the short squeeze. There's been an incredible amount of short sellers in the marketplace betting against it to the tune of like $250 million. And so as a short seller, you have to cover your positions or execute those options every third week of the month or whenever those contracts come due. So when we do see a sharp increase, it could be a short squeeze from short sellers covering their positions and driving that price up. So it might not even be about fundamentals. It could just be that those short sellers don't really want to buy the underlying security or stock. They'd rather just close it out and then buy another short position. So that's why I say come back to the Talking Hedge, look at our index, because you can see an obvious bounce between weeks. It just keeps coming between a support level of 450 and a resistance of 475, double topping and then coming down, double topping, going up. So it could be a breakout. We'll see. There's a lot of predictions though from that we did with our previous podcasts on predictions. A lot of that is price and profit. Green Entrepreneur had mentioned that there's going to be a big shakeout and a huge fourth quarter. What that means is that as some of these companies collapse, the ones that are left are going to have a huge breakout fourth quarter, but that's going to come due to a huge shakeout, consolidation.
You can feel it on the ground. You can almost see it.
Mm-hmm. It's all about that price and profit. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.